Hello and welcome to another edition of What Does the Giraffe Say with me, Kathleen Retourne. We are a service that are looking to reconnect organisations with their followers by holding live interviews which are then streamed onto Facebook. Today I am very lucky as I am being joined with Talita. She is the vet at Chimfunshi Wildlife Orphanage, which has a main focus on chimpanzees and is based in Chingola in Zambia. So Talita, I'm going to pass over to you. If you could just tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got to becoming a vet for Chimfunshi.
Hi, good evening. My name is Talita. I'm the vet from Chimfunshi here in Zambia. So I've been here for about 5.5 years. I'm Brazilian, so I'm not from Zambia originally, but have been very welcome here, and now it's my home. And I love it here. And chimps are my family nowadays, and they are my best friends. And I live for them for the time being.
How long have you been based there?
5.5 years.
Okay, and what was you doing prior to that?
Right prior to this, I was working in Brazil with wild animal rescue. So yeah, I've worked with always in wildlife, zoo and wildlife. But I've done quite a few different things. I've done a lot of primate medicine before that. And then great apes kind of got into my life, and for the last 6 years have been pretty much what I've been doing. It's very hard to get out once you actually know them.
Yeah, they become, as you say, like your family.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they are quite captivating. And today is World Chimpanzee Day. So it's 60 years from Jane Goodall started her research in Gombe. And I think it's the 4th year that we celebrate the Chimpanzee Day. So it's to raise awareness on chimpanzee in the wild, in captivity, and the plight from chimpanzees. So it's quite an important day for everybody.
Excellent. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us about them today. I'm sure there's going to be loads of people that are really interested to hear some more of your story. I've been very fortunate that I've spent some time with you guys down in Chingola and Chimfunshi. Probably over the last few years, I've spent a good few months there. One of the things I love about it is it's you're in the middle of nowhere, you are in the bush, you're surrounded by wildlife. It's a completely authentic experience. One of the things, though, that is very challenging about that is the exact same thing. You are in the middle of nowhere. How do you face those challenges as a vet? I mean, how do you go about doing your practices when you're limited with supplies, with funds, and those kind of things?
You have to be very resilient. You have to be very patient, and you have to be very creative. So that's, I think, with the 3 things, you kind of survive. But you do, and then you just kind of figure out things. Sometimes you just don't have it at first, but then after a few months, you do figure out how to get them. So you need to find the right path. And in the end, you do.
Has there been anything that you've had to make up from scratch using random things around and that kind of thing?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, some people say that I'm a bit of a MacGyver kind of thing. I don't know if you remember MacGyver. Yeah, because I very often I figure out things from scratch and from scraps very often too.
I know as well, before from talking with you previously, that a lot of the other vets in different organizations in different locations, you have like a support group almost where you share your knowledge and say, okay, you can use a hula hoop for this, for example, and kind of help each other out that way.
Yeah, but that's funny, but that's something that in veterinary medicine, you already do that a lot. You already use alternatives for a lot of things. In wildlife, exotics and wildlife, you multiply that by 100. And then when you're in a not bad, but a remote environment, then you're doing that every day, 100 times a day. you're finding alternatives and you're figuring out your way in every step you go.
So as I mentioned earlier that your main focus is with the chimpanzees. How do they end up coming to you guys? What condition are they in? How do you then rehabilitate them? Because often I know a lot of them have come from some really quite tragic backgrounds.
Yeah, so chimpanzees are officially not native to Zambia nowadays. They probably were at some point. So we know very little about chimpanzees before 100 years. So as I said, Jane Goodall started research about 60 years ago only. So we know very little before that. But they possibly were around the borders of Zambia, but we don't know much. But so officially they're not here, but they were around this area, and they were being trafficked around this area for a long time in the 80s. And we started getting them. And we also rescue from all over the world nowadays. So mostly from Africa, so from countries that need rescue, that they don't have rescue centers. So mostly not the non-core countries. So the mostly countries that don't have a big populations, or populations that are already really threatened, or animals that are already been smuggled to border countries. So those are the animals that we rescue. Because we are non-native country, not range, sometimes they take a little bit longer to get here. But they still get here sometimes pretty traumatized, and malnourished condition. They do have physical trauma. And that's the history of chimpanzee rescue all over the world. I think we still get them in a little bit better condition because we need to get all the permits for them to get here. Sometimes they have to be in a midway house, or with somebody trained that kind of feed them better until we get all the permits to get here, and treat them for a little bit, a few weeks, a few months, until we get the paperwork done. And with that, they get here in a slightly better situation. But in sanctuaries where you're in the range, where you're dealing with the illegal trafficking and the bushmeat and all that, you see pretty shocking situations with them. I've seen it, yeah.
And how do you then go about getting them to become chimps? Because some of them have been in the tourism industry and are only used to humans. I know you have a few like that there. And other ones are just so traumatized. And how do you then get them to actually kind of go back to what they should be like?
It takes time. It takes a lot of time, because chimpanzees have culture, chimpanzees have language, and you forget that they actually speak different languages depending where they come from. And they actually behave differently depending on which groups they come from. So it takes a lot of time for them to actually learn, depending how much time they spend with humans. So it's a whole process of quarantine to make sure that they're healthy, that they have no disease, they're not sick. And then after that, they have to go through a process of getting their physical condition back, but then their mental condition back, and then they go through a process of integration. That means that when they have to learn not only to socialize, but also to learn how to behave with others, and then how to behave in the outside world. And that takes time. It might take years. We have animals that are they've been outside for 2 years and they're still learning. Yeah.
Have you had any moments where you realize that this is why you do this job? What's your favorite success story?
I think a lot of people that follow us on social media might have heard about Layla. I think Layla is because she's a rescue, and she was one of my favorite, not my favorites, but she was my first case here from start to finish, and that I followed, and I was really involved with her rescue, her transport, and her integration. And she was traumatized, and she is traumatized, and she has bullets on her body. She has head trauma, and she is the most smiley chimp and happiest chimp that you can find. And she didn't speak chimpanzee at all. She didn't know how to behave when she saw another chimpanzee. And because she was captive in a situation that is not suitable for very, very long, and she didn't know how to behave. And seeing her outside now, she's still a bit off, but she's actually a chimpanzee. So seeing her, actually playing pen hooting and actually talking with other chimpanzees, it's quite rewarding. And that's why I do this.
And what would you say to people back home if they're thinking that this sounds like a job that they'd love to do? What sort of advice would you give them? Because obviously we touched on it earlier about how the challenges of the remote living, you're far away from home, but you do then have the rewards that you've just spoken about. So what sort of process do you think people should go through if they really want to do this seriously?
I think the first thing for any biologists, veterinarians, people from this kind of field, that if that's what they think they want to follow, is don't take no for an answer. Don't go back for the first no that you get. If you think that that's what you want, go ahead. Said no, but I'm not suitable. Well, there's always alternatives. So just carry on, find your niche. That there is possibilities. There's not only one way to go through. There's many ways.
And what sort of things can they do back home to prepare themselves to be going to live in somewhere so very different to what they're used to?
I think is to have an open mind first thing. As try to be as open for everything that you can. Also try to experience as much as they can. So do not focus too much. Experience things and enjoy things. And sometimes opportunities will come from places where you were not expecting. And sometimes you have to take those. That I have to say that has happened with me, and that's pretty much how I end up here. So
I think sometimes having no plan is the best plan, because then you just follow what kind of comes in towards you, and you can take you to adventures that you never thought you'd have.
Pretty much. Yeah. No, I never thought, I always wanted, but I never thought I was going to end up in Africa. So, or with chimps, it kind of happened. So it's a very happy and fortunate thing that happened to my life, but it was never a planned thing for me. So yeah.
Okay, well, I've got one more question, and then we'll see if we've got any questions from the audience. So if anyone back home watching wants to ask a question, just pop it on the comments section below, and I'll be reading through those in a bit. But from me, Talita, obviously COVID is a huge thing all around the world. It's impacting every corner of the globe. What impact is it having on your work? Is there a danger to the chimpanzees' health? And what can people back home do to help?
So this whole situation has impacted us and the great ape world a lot, okay? Because chimps, we believe, could have COVID. They have the same receptors for the virus as the humans do. So nobody wants to actually try and see if they can or not. But all the research points towards that they can and they could. And because chimpanzees are so sensitive to respiratory virus, and we have had deaths before and outbreaks that have killed a lot of chimpanzees, both in captivities and in the wild, we know the dangers of a virus like this, a novel virus like this in a population. So like Chimfunshi and most of the sanctuaries, I think most to all the tourism places in the wild are all closed for the time being, because nobody can all these animals are endangered. All the gray ape species are endangered. So we cannot risk it at this stage. So for a sanctuary that receives a lot of volunteers, a lot of researchers, and a lot of their income comes from it, it impacts us a lot, which it's very complicated to maintain these animals without the income that comes from it. So we're fully dependent on donations here, and at this stage with the doors closed.
And then if someone back home wanted to donate, how would they go about doing so?
We have an online campaign on our website right now. So at Chimfunshi Wildlife Coronavirus. So you can donate through there, and we would really appreciate the help because it does make a lot of difference for us.
Excellent. Okay, well, just looking at some of the comments, and someone's asking back home if you have a favorite chimpanzee. I'm sure that's asking if it's like a favorite child.
I have a lot of them. I don't have one. So people that spend time here with me know that I have a soft spot for a lot of them. But Layla, Little Joy, so whoever haven't seen the YouTube video on Little Joy, so Zabu, there's a lot of them. There's not one.
And I also know from, again, spending some time with you guys that you've recently made a bigger enclosure as well for the escape artists. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we have 4 very, very smart guys. That is our escape artists that a lot of our volunteers and visitors used to love. And now they're in a big enclosure and they're having a blast. They're having the time of their lives and they're extremely happy. Mila, our oldest resident, she is 48 years old and she is really, really happy. All of them are. Chiffon and Colin and Cleo, they're all really happy at this stage and enjoying their time outside.
And what about the local community? So they get to spend time with the chimpanzees. A lot of your staff are local Zambians, so do they then get educated about the importance of them?
Yeah, we have a local community. We have a community school on grounds that we currently with 100. Well, the schools are off because of COVID, but we are with about 140 students registered. I think 140, 150 students registered from grade 1 to grade 8. Grade 9, sorry, grade 9. And of course, we use our conservation education program at our school. We're trying to open for the surrounding schools too. But the guys at our school spend a lot of time at the chimps. They go there. A lot of them are kids from our keepers and are born here and spend a lot of time there. Today we had an event and we had kids penhooting around the Ed Center. And doing masks for the World Chimp Day. And if you follow us on Facebook and Instagram, you might see that, including me penhooting somewhere.
Okay. I've got one more question left. And someone's asking if you still have enough supplies for Chimfunshi, for the chimps.
Veterinary supplies, we are constantly buying, like masks. We have done some fabric masks for the community, but for the keepers we use commercial masks too. We do need to buy more and we constantly buy. We can accept donations too. I don't know how some countries in the beginning of the outbreak was not allowing medical supplies to get out of the countries. So that's one of the things. So if you want and you can access to supplies, maybe send me an email or contact us through social media and we can talk, because that goes through the countries and what you can send out. I'm not sure about this stage. I think now it's a little bit easier, but in the beginning you couldn't.
Yeah.
But we can always talk. So just send it. We are always in need.
For sure.
We go through we go through a lot with 138 chips.
I know, and I've seen feeding time, and that's a lot of work and a lot of noise.
Oh yeah.
They're not known for being quiet, are they?
No. But they can be. It's impressive how sometimes they can be very quiet, but then in a minute they're just the noisiest animal on earth.
Excellent. All right, thank you so much, Talita, for taking the time to talk with me today. I hope everyone watching back home has enjoyed it as much as I have. If you have any other questions for Chimfunshi, then just pop them on the comments below and someone will get back to you with a response, but we really appreciate everyone for tuning in. Talita, is there anything you want to say to wrap up?
No, I just wanted to thank you and thank the guys that came up tonight. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Okay, thank you everyone and enjoy the rest of your day.